We're finally home. This is our first night as a family of 3. Katsuki, I can't believe how fast everything happened. It feels like just yesterday we were planning this day, and now here we are. Jake, I know. It's surreal. I just can't believe that our baby boy is finally here. Katsuki, I'm so excited to see what this new chapter in our lives brings. Katsuki nods his head and says, Okay, let's do that. It'll be good to check on him and make sure he's comfortable. Jake carefully lifts the car seat and places it on the couch. He then unbuckles the baby and pulls him out of the seat. He holds the baby close and smiles, kissing his forehead gently. Katsuki laughs and says, I know, he's so precious. I can't believe we made something so wonderful. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. Katsuki chuckles and says, It's true. He's such a miracle. I never thought I would be a father. But now, here we are. It's like a dream come true. Jake smiles and says, And he's even cuter than I imagined. I can't wait to watch him grow and see what kind of person he becomes. I hope we can raise him to be a good person. Katsuki nods his head and says, That's right. We'll give him all the love and attention he needs, and he'll know that he's always safe and protected in our arms. Katsuki follows behind Jake, watching as he carries the baby to the nursery. The nursery is decorated with soft pastel colors and cute decorations. The crib is perfectly made, and the room is filled with toys and stuffed animals. Katsuki smiles and says, Look at all the pretty things we have for him. I'm so excited to see him explore his new room. I bet he's going to love it. Katsuki laughs and says, Look at him, he's mesmerized by the mobile. He seems to be enjoying it. The baby's eyes follow the movement of the animals, his tiny hands reaching up towards them. Katsuki smiles and says, He really does seem to be enjoying it. It's so sweet seeing him react like this. I'm glad we picked out such a great mobile for him. They continue watching the baby's reaction to the mobile, and the baby's eyes seem to light up as he watches the animals spin around. Katsuki smiles and says, Aw, he's so cute. He must be tired from everything that's happened today. He looks so peaceful and relaxed. I'm glad he's able to rest comfortably. Katsuki nods his head and says, That's a great idea. We should let him rest without disturbing him. Let's go to our room and keep an eye on him from there. That way we can watch him and make sure he's comfortable. Katsuki lays down next to him and looks at the baby monitor screen. The baby looks so peaceful in his sleep. Katsuki smiles and says, "He looks so cute. I'm so glad we have this monitor to check on him. I can't wait to see him grow up." Katsuki smiles and wraps his arm around Jake, pulling him close. He says, "He's so peaceful when he sleeps. I hope it stays that way too. It's such a sweet sight to see him resting so peacefully." Katsuki's eyes snap open and he sits up quickly. He looks over at the baby monitor and sees that the light is on. He gets out of bed and walks over to the monitor, looking at the screen. He can see the baby crying and moving around in his crib. Katsuki walks into the baby's room and sees the baby crying in his crib. He gently picks the baby up and holds him close, trying to comfort him. The baby continues to cry, his face red and tear-stained. Katsuki's eyes. "Shh, it's okay. Daddy's here. You're safe. Daddy's got you." Katsuki notices that the baby's diaper is soaked and he's crying from hunger. He quickly changes the diaper, hoping to soothe the baby's discomfort. The baby seems to calm down a bit after the diaper change. Katsuki says, "There you go, Daddy's got you. Let's go get you some milk. We can't have our little guy going hungry, can we?" Katsuki makes the bottle with the perfect temperature. Not too hot, but just the right amount of warmth. He gently lifts the baby to his mouth and holds the bottle in place. The baby begins to drink the milk eagerly, gulping it down. Katsuki smiles and says, "There you go. Just take your time and drink as much as you need. Daddy's got you." The baby finishes the bottle, feeling full and satisfied. Katsuki puts the bottle down and takes the baby in his arms, holding him close. The baby burps softly, and Katsuki laughs and says, "That's my good boy. You must have been really hungry." Katsuki laughs and says, "You're so cute. Just keep playing with your hands. It's okay. Daddy's here and he's not going anywhere. We're going to just relax for a while." Katsuki looks down at the baby and smiles. He's so peaceful when he's asleep. Katsuki doesn't want to disturb him, so he decides to let him sleep. He sits there, holding the baby and watching the TV. The baby continues to sleep soundly, his breathing becoming more and more even and relaxed. Katsuki quietly gets up and walks over to the bassinet. He places the baby gently inside the bassinet, making sure to cover him with the blankets. The baby is still sleeping soundly, his breathing even and regular. Katsuki smiles and says, "Sleep well, little one. Daddy will be right back." Katsuki walks into the bathroom and does his business quickly. He's just relieved that the baby didn't wake up. He comes back out and walks over to the bassinet, checking on the baby. The baby is still asleep, his breathing slow and steady. Katsuki smiles and says, "You really are a good sleeper. I don't know how you can stay asleep for so long." Katsuki heads to the kitchen and starts cooking dinner. He's making one of Jake's favorite meals, hoping that it will be a nice surprise when he wakes up. The baby is still asleep in the bassinet, his breath coming in soft, steady breaths. Katsuki looks up and sees Jake walking into the kitchen. He smiles and says, "Yeah, everything is fine. The baby just woke up and started crying. I fed him and changed his diaper. He's back to sleep now, and I'm making dinner for us. I hope you like pasta." Katsuki shakes his head and says, "It's okay, I've got this. You just relax and let me take care of you. I'll be done soon, I promise." Katsuki smiles and says, "Okay, go ahead and take your time. I'll have dinner ready when you get back." Katsuki continues cooking dinner, taking his time and making sure everything is perfect. He takes in the scent of the food, savoring the aroma. The baby continues to sleep in the bassinet, unaware of the chaos and activity around him. Katsuki smiles and says, "It's going well. I'm almost done. Just putting the finishing touches on the pasta and the sauce. I hope you're hungry because I made a lot of food." Katsuki laughs and says, "Good, because there's plenty for both of us. I hope you're ready for a delicious meal." Katsuki smiles and says, "Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I made it just for you." He takes his own plate and sits down next to Jake, eating his own serving of pasta. Katsuki looks over and sees the baby starting to stir. He smiles and says, "Oh, looks like he's waking up. I'll go get him." Katsuki walks over to the bassinet and picks up the baby, holding him close. "Hey there! Did you have a good nap?" Katsuki laughs and says, "You're so cute. I can't believe you're mine. I'm going to make sure you have the best life possible, I promise." Katsuki nods his head and says, "Okay, if you're sure you don't mind. I am pretty tired. I think I'll just go to bed. You're sure you don't need any help?" Katsuki smiles and says, "All right then. Thank you, honey. I appreciate it. I'll be in bed if you need me." The baby looks up at Jake with his big, bright eyes. He smiles and laughs as Jake talks to him. Jake can't help but smile back at the adorable baby. He's so precious. The baby babbles and nods his head eagerly. He seems excited at the idea of Jake singing him a song. The baby's eyes light up as he listens to Jake sing. He seems completely entranced by the soft lullaby. Jake keeps singing, his voice soothing and calming. The baby starts to yawn, his eyes becoming heavy. The baby's eyes open wide as he hears the new song. His little mouth opens and closes, as if he's trying to mimic Jake's singing. Jake smiles and continues to sing, his voice soothing and gentle. The baby's eyes light up and he starts cooing and giggling. He's clearly enjoying the song. Jake continues singing, the words and melody so sweet and heartfelt. The baby reaches out towards Jake, as if he wants to hold Jake's hand. The baby starts to fall asleep, his eyes becoming heavy. He's completely entranced by Jake's voice and the song. He's starting to drift off, his body growing limp and relaxed. Jake finishes singing and looks down at the baby, smiling softly. The baby falls into a deep sleep, his breathing slow and steady. The baby monitor is on, and the sound of his soft breathing is comforting. Jake smiles and leaves the room, closing the door behind him. He walks into the bedroom and sees Katsuki already asleep. He smiles and climbs into bed next to him, wrapping his arms around him. Katsuki stirs in his sleep, his body relaxing as he feels the warm embrace of Jake's arms. He smiles in his sleep and rolls over, wrapping his arms around Jake and pulling him close. The two of them sleep peacefully together, their bodies entwined. They're both so happy and content, their hearts filled with love and warmth. Katsuki and Jake are sitting on the couch watching baby Alexander as he sits in the swing. He's getting stronger every day, and they're both so proud of him. Katsuki smiles and says, "He's doing so well. I can't believe how fast he's growing. It feels like just yesterday he was a little baby." Katsuki laughs and says, "He's going to be crawling soon. I can't believe how fast he's learning. It seems like every day he's doing something new. I can't wait to see what he's going to do next." Katsuki nods his head and says, "I know what you mean. We've been stuck at home for so long with the baby. It feels like we haven't done anything in ages. But I think you're right. It's time to get out and explore. We should take the baby with us and see what we can do." Katsuki smiles and says, "That sounds like a great idea. It would be nice to get out of the house and go somewhere. We can take the baby with us and just have a fun day. What do you think?" Katsuki nods his head and says, "Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. He's definitely big enough to wear now, and it's a lot easier to carry him around like that. We can go wherever we want without having to worry about pushing a stroller around." Katsuki nods his head and says, "Okay, I'm on it. I'll get all the stuff ready. Don't worry, I'll make sure everything is perfect for the baby. You can handle getting him ready." Katsuki comes back into the room with everything ready. He's carrying the diaper bag and the carrier. He smiles and says, "Looks like everything is ready. The carrier looks good and the diaper bag is stocked with everything we need. We're all set to go. Katsuki nods his head and says, I'm ready. Let's do this. We're going to have so much fun today. I can't wait to see what's in store for us. Katsuki laughs and says, I know what you mean. We've been stuck at home for so long. I'm looking forward to just getting out and being in the world again. Let's just enjoy ourselves today and make the most of it. We're going to have a great time. Katsuki follows behind Jake, carrying the diaper bag and the carrier. He looks at the baby and smiles, feeling a sense of pride and joy. He's so excited to be out and about with his family again. Katsuki gets into the driver's seat and starts the car. He puts on his seatbelt and says, All right, let's go. I'm so excited for this. It's going to be fun. Katsuki smiles and pulls out of the driveway, driving down the road. He glances back at the baby and smiles. He can't believe how big the baby has gotten. It feels like just yesterday that he was born. Katsuki laughs and says, He's so curious. He's just taking in everything around him. He must be wondering where we're going, but he looks so happy. I'm glad he's enjoying the ride. Katsuki chuckles and says, Yeah, I remember. I couldn't believe how much he hated his car seat. But it's all good now. He's used to it and seems to like it just fine. It's amazing how much he's grown and changed in just a few months. Katsuki laughs and says, He is pretty smart, isn't he? I can't believe how fast he's learning. I think he's going to be a little genius just like his dad's. Katsuki looks around, noticing that the traffic is not moving at all. He looks worried and says, I don't know what's going on. It's like everything just came to a standstill. I don't see any signs or anything. I wonder if we should turn around. Katsuki sighs and says, You're right. It's too late to turn around now. We're stuck in traffic and there's nothing we can do about it. But I hope nothing bad has happened. It would be terrible if someone was hurt. Katsuki nods his head and says, You're right. Let's get over there as quickly as we can. We should try to get through the traffic and see what's going on. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we think. Katsuki looks out at the scene in horror, his face turning pale. He can't believe what he's seeing. It's a terrible accident, and it looks like there are people hurt. He looks over at Jake, his eyes wide with shock. Katsuki shakes his head and says, "It's awful. I can't believe this is happening. I feel so bad for the people involved. It looks like there's been some serious damage." Katsuki nods his head and says, "Yeah, you're right. We should get going. It's probably best to just keep moving and not think about it too much. It's still a bit of a shock, but we can't do anything about it now." Katsuki looks back at the baby and says, "Hey, it's okay. We're almost there. We're just a few minutes away from the mall. Are you feeling okay?" Katsuki nods and lays the baby down on the blanket in the trunk. He takes out some wipes and hands them to Jake, saying, "Here you go. Let's get this mess cleaned up." Katsuki watches as Jake starts cleaning up the baby. He's impressed by his gentle and delicate touch, making sure to avoid any mess. He smiles and says, "He's so lucky to have a dad like you who's so patient and loving." Katsuki helps Jake with the baby, making sure everything is done properly and that the baby is clean. He smiles and says, "He looks like a new baby. We did a great job getting him all clean and changed. I think we should get back on the road now." Katsuki nods and says, "Good idea. Let's make sure everything is all clean and ready to go. We don't want any accidents while we're driving." Katsuki nods his head and says, "All right, let's get him back in the car seat. We're almost there. I can't wait to get to the mall and have some fun." Katsuki nods and says, "All right, I'll pull up to that pump. Do you need any help?" Katsuki smiles and says, "All right then. Let me know if you need anything." He pulls up to the pump and parks the car. Katsuki sits in the car, watching Jake. He can't help but feel a sense of pride seeing Jake take care of everything. He looks at the baby in the back seat and smiles. He can't wait to get to the mall. Katsuki parked the car with practiced ease, a feat made considerably more difficult with a screaming infant in the back. Unbuckling Alexander from his car seat, he fumbled for a moment with the straps of the baby carrier before settling the child snug against his chest. "Ready?" he asked gruffly, extending a hand to Jake. Jake's smile was warm. "As I'll ever be." He slipped his hand into Katsuki's, their fingers intertwining comfortably. Katsuki smiles as he looks around, taking in the atmosphere of the mall. He's not sure what to expect, but he's excited to find out. He's also excited to spend some time with Jake and Alexander. They walk through the entrance, the baby's head resting on Katsuki's chest as he gazes around the mall. A rare smile tugged at the corner of Katsuki's lips as he took in the sights and sounds of the mall. The usual annoyance he felt towards crowds was strangely muted today, replaced by a tentative curiosity. Maybe there was something to be said for family outings after all. He glanced down at Alexander, whose head bobbed gently against his chest, a content sigh escaping the baby's lips. Beside him, Jake's hand squeezed his reassuringly. With a newfound determination, Katsuki nods and says, "Yeah, you're right. It's been too long since we've been out together like this. Let's make the most of it and have a great time. We can check out some stores and maybe get something to eat." Scoffed, a hint scoffed, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Over my dead body, babe." Katsuki rolled his eyes and said, I know, but there's no way in hell I'm letting him wear a onesie that says that." Scoffed. Sidekick. "No way. That's even worse. I'm not having my son be seen as someone's sidekick. He's going to be a hero, damn it." I know he's a baby, but it's never too early to set the right expectations. I'm not letting him be seen as a sidekick. He needs to be seen as a leader, not someone who just follows someone else. Katsuki rolled his eyes and said, "Fine. But you better not buy him a onesie that says anything about being a sidekick. I'm serious. Katsuki looked at Jake, considering the idea. He nodded and said, "Yeah, that actually doesn't sound bad. And it's definitely a lot less over the top than the onesie with the explosions. It's cute and not too extreme. I think he would like that." Katsuki's scowl deepened into a thundercloud as he spotted a familiar mop of green hair at the pretzel stand. It was, of course, Deku. Just his luck to bump into his childhood rival at the freaking mall. He yanked Jake to a halt, effectively ruining their momentum towards the warm, salty goodness. "Great," he growled, annoyance lacing his voice. "Just what we needed." "Do we really need this? Pretzel," he says to Jake. Katsuki rolled his eyes and said, "Fine, whatever. But if he says anything to me, I'm not going to hold back. And I'm definitely not being nice to that little brat." Katsuki's anger subsided slightly as he looked down at Alexander. He couldn't help but feel a little protective of the baby. "Fine, you're right. I guess I'll try to keep my cool. But if he says something stupid, I'm not responsible for my actions." Katsuki glared at Deku, a scowl on his face. "I'd rather not talk to you, thanks. You're a nuisance, remember? The last thing I need is your annoying voice in my ear." Katsuki's scowl only deepened as Jake spoke to Deku, his grip tightening on Jake's hand. He hated seeing Deku so cheerful and smug. He was almost as insufferable as his stupid collection of All Might merch. Katsuki growled and said, "He's fine, just doing his thing like babies do. And don't you dare touch him, you hear me? I don't want you getting anywhere near my son." Katsuki scowled at Deku and said, "Exactly. Now leave us alone. We're trying to enjoy our time at the mall, and you're ruining it. So just go away and let us enjoy ourselves." Katsuki's eyes narrowed and his face twisted into a scowl as he watched Deku walk away. He hated the way he had been so dismissive of Katsuki's warning, not caring about his words at all. And then he had the audacity to give Jake a side hug and wink at him. It was the last thing Katsuki wanted to see, especially since he was still trying to control his anger. He turned to Jake, his tone sharp as he spoke. Don't even think about talking to him again. And don't let him touch you. Katsuki followed Jake to a table in the food court, the pretzels in hand. His anger was still simmering just below the surface, but he was starting to relax a little. He took a deep breath and sat down, looking at Jake. He was still frustrated by Jake's submissive attitude, but he was trying to calm down. Katsuki took a deep breath and nodded his head, his mood softening a little bit. He did love a good pretzel, and he had to admit, Jake's enthusiasm for them was a bit contagious. He smiled and took a bite of his pretzel, the salty, buttery goodness melting in his mouth. Katsuki looked down at the baby, who was indeed staring up at him with wide, curious eyes. The sight of his little face was enough to melt his heart. "You like pretzels too, don't you?" he said, smiling at the baby. He took another bite of the pretzel and held it out towards the baby, letting him take a little nibble. Katsuki couldn't help but smile at the baby's reaction. He was such a sweet little thing, and it was hard not to get attached to him. He laughed softly and took another bite of his pretzel, watching as the baby chewed on it. It was so cute how he was enjoying it so much. Katsuki chuckled and took another bite of his pretzel, savoring the salty, buttery flavor. He looked over at Jake and said, "Yeah, it's pretty adorable. I never thought I'd see the day that I'd be excited to have a kid, but here I am, enjoying this moment." Katsuki laughed as he finished his own pretzel, the saltiness lingering on his tongue. "Damn, you're right. It was really good. I think I could eat another one right now." Katsuki scowled at the nickname but couldn't help but smile. It was true. He was a little bit of a foodie. He had a weakness for good food and was always looking for new ways to try out different flavors. "Fine, fine. But I'm not stopping at just one pretzel. We're gonna get at least 3, you hear me?" Katsuki chuckled and said, "Fine, I'll let you take me to the baby store. But don't even think about trying to buy a whole wardrobe for him. We can get one or two things, but that's it." Katsuki rolled his eyes and said, "Yeah, I'm not letting you go overboard. He doesn't need an entire closet full of clothes. We'll get a few onesies and that's it. And don't you dare try to convince me otherwise." Katsuki scowled, but he knew Jake was right. He was being a little too overprotective and possessive. He took a deep breath and tried to relax. "Fine, I'll stop rolling my eyes, but I still don't like the idea of spending too much on clothes for the baby." Katsuki sighed and nodded his head. He was still reluctant to spend too much, but he knew Jake was right. The baby did need some new clothes, and they could afford it. "Okay, 2 outfits. That's it. And then we're going to a store that's not a baby store. Got it?" Katsuki followed Jake into the store, taking a look around. He was actually surprised by how many cute outfits there were. He had no idea the baby store had such an extensive selection. He spotted a few onesies that caught his eye, but he held back from grabbing them. He would let Jake choose what he wanted for the baby, and he would decide if he liked it or not. Katsuki smiled and nodded, feeling his chest warm at the compliment. He was happy that someone else thought the baby was cute, and he couldn't help but agree with her assessment. "Yeah, he is a good baby. He's a little bit of a troublemaker sometimes, but he's really sweet." Katsuki's smile faltered a little bit at the mention of his wife. He hated that people always assumed he was married and that his partner was a woman. "No, I don't have a wife. I'm a happily married man to my husband right over there." Katsuki's eyes widened in shock, and his expression hardened. "How dare she make that judgment? What's unethical is you thinking it's your business who I'm married to. Just because you have certain beliefs about what is right and wrong, doesn't mean your opinion applies to everyone else. I'm proud to be married to my husband, and I wouldn't change a thing." Katsuki's jaw clenched as he heard the woman's comment. How dare she speak to him like that? "That's none of your business. And it's not physically impossible at all. We have a surrogate mother who carried our child. So, just because you're ignorant doesn't mean you can judge others." Katsuki was starting to get really angry now, and he was struggling to keep his temper in check. How dare she insinuate that gay couples were incapable of having children, or that they only had pets? That's completely wrong. Gay couples can be just as good parents as anyone else. Just because you've never met anyone like us doesn't mean we're not out there. We're just trying to live our lives and be happy. and that includes having a child. So you should mind your own business. Katsuki turned to look at Jake, who was holding the outfits in his hands. He was relieved to see him and took a deep breath to calm down. She was just asking about our son. And then she started talking about us having a pet instead of a baby, and how it's not physically possible for gay couples to have children. I was trying to explain to her that it's not true, but she's just too stubborn to listen. Katsuki chuckled at the way Jake had handled the situation. He had been too upset to say anything, but Jake had definitely taken care of it. He was glad he had Jake there to defend him. Damn, you really laid it on thick. I'm impressed. Katsuki nodded in agreement. He had never understood why people felt the need to judge others based on their sexuality or gender identity. Everyone should be free to love whoever they want and have a happy life. Yeah, I guess you're right. She was just being ignorant and close-minded, and she definitely got what she deserved for her comments. Let's just hope she learns a lesson from this. Katsuki's eyes lit up as he saw the two outfits. He couldn't help but smile at the cuteness of them. He especially loved the All Might onesie, since it was a perfect blend of their two favorite things. They're both so adorable. We definitely have to get both of them. Which one do you think Alexander will like more? The bear or the All Might one? Katsuki nodded his head in agreement. It was hard to pick just one, and he was sure that Alexander would look adorable in both of them. Yeah, I guess you're right. Let's just get them both and see which one he likes more. And if he likes both, then we can let him wear them when we feel like it. That way, he'll always be looking cute and comfy. Katsuki rolled his eyes as he saw Deku heading into the video game store. Of course, he had to show up just when they were leaving the baby store. He hated how he was always around, making trouble for them. He tried not to let it get to him, and focused on the task at hand, paying for the baby clothes and leaving the store. Katsuki sighed and looked down at Jake, trying to hide his annoyance. Nothing. It's just, you know, I just hate how Deku seems to show up whenever we're doing something. Katsuki nodded his head, feeling a little bit more relaxed now that Jake was here. He was right. There was no reason to let Deku get to him. They had bigger things to worry about, like their little family and the baby. You're right. Let's just focus on us and our family. We don't need to let him get under our skin. Katsuki couldn't help but smile as he took in the atmosphere of the crystal store. It was so different from anything he'd ever seen before. The smell of incense and the bright, vibrant colors of the crystals and other items was so soothing and inviting. He felt like he was in a different world. This is amazing. I've never seen anything like this before. It's so colorful and mystical. Katsuki followed behind Jake, feeling completely entranced by the atmosphere of the store. He was amazed at how much Jake seemed to be enjoying himself. His bright eyes and wide smile were contagious, and Katsuki couldn't help but feel happy just being around him. You know, I never would have thought that you were into this stuff. You always seem so serious and focused. But here you are, being all excited and energetic. Katsuki laughed at Jake's comment, finding it amusing how open and playful he was in this store. He didn't seem like the same serious and focused person he usually was. Well, you certainly have a unique taste. I'm surprised you don't have a whole collection of witchy stuff at home. Katsuki smiled as he watched Jake pick up the rose quartz heart. It was a very pretty crystal, and it would be a perfect addition to Jake's collection. He was also impressed by how Jake knew his crystals and their meanings. I think that's a great choice. Rose quartz is a really special crystal, and it's perfect for love and relationships. I'm sure it would make a great addition to your collection. Katsuki laughed at the sight of the giant crystal ball and its shiny surface. It was certainly a unique item, and he could see why Jake was so excited about it. It was definitely a one-of-a-kind piece, and would look amazing in his collection. I agree. That's definitely a must-have for any witch. It's so big and shiny, and the base is really cool too. It would look great in your room or anywhere else you decide to put it. Katsuki laughed and rolled his eyes, but he couldn't deny how impressed he was by Jake's enthusiasm. It was adorable how much he loved the crystal ball. Yeah, you look like a fortune teller. Maybe you should try your hand at reading people's futures and see what you can see in that crystal ball. Katsuki chuckled and watched as Jake picked up the crystal ball. He was definitely excited to have it, and he couldn't wait to see how it would look in his room. It was a unique item and would definitely be a statement piece. Good choice. That crystal ball is perfect for you. I'm sure it'll look great in your room. Now let's go pay for it. Katsuki laughed at the sight of Jake grabbing the sage bundles. It was a little bit funny how much Jake had taken to the witchy stuff, but he couldn't deny that he liked the way it looked. Okay, I think that's everything we need. Let's go pay for it and head home. Katsuki groaned in frustration, but he knew he couldn't stop Jake from doing whatever he wanted. He was so stubborn, and he always had to get his way. Okay, fine. But if this is the last store we're going to, then you're paying for everything. I'm not spending a cent more on this shopping trip. Katsuki scoffed, but he couldn't help but feel a little bit curious. What could possibly be so great that Jake was so insistent on going there? Fine, I'll try to be less grumpy. But you better not take too long at this store, or I'm going to get really annoyed. Katsuki rolled his eyes, but he couldn't help but be intrigued by Jake's insistence on keeping the surprise a secret. He decided to play along, closing his eyes and holding onto Jake's hands tightly. Okay, I'm ready. Just don't take too long getting there, okay? Katsuki's eyes widen in surprise as he opens his eyes and sees the giant candy store. He had never seen anything like it before. The inside of the store was like a candy wonderland with every kind of candy imaginable. It was like a dream come true. Oh my God, this is amazing. I've never seen a store like this before. It's like a candy paradise. And look at all the candy, you can smell it. Katsuki laughs and follows Jake inside the candy store, feeling completely awestruck by the amount of candy there. He couldn't believe how much there was to choose from. This place is incredible. I can't believe there's so much candy here. I don't even know where to start. We're definitely going to be here for a while. Katsuki follows behind Jake, watching as he fills up the cart with all his favorite candies. The store was so colorful and vibrant, and it was hard to decide what to pick. There were so many different types of candy, and he wanted to try it all. This place is so cool. I feel like I've gone back in time to when I was a kid. I'm so excited to try all these candies. Katsuki laughs at the sight of the giant gummy bear, which was so cute and wiggly. It was like it was moving all by itself, and it was so much bigger than he expected. He couldn't believe they actually sold candy this big. Katsuki stares at the massive gummy bear in awe. It was so huge, and he couldn't help but wonder how they even made it that big. It was like a giant, edible work of art. Wow, that is huge. I've never seen a gummy bear that big before. How do they even make something that big? And what would you even do with a gummy bear that big? Katsuki laughed at the idea of slowly eating the giant gummy bear over time. It was a pretty fun idea, and he couldn't deny that it would be delicious. Okay, I think you're right. It would be fun to slowly eat the gummy bear over time. And the cherry flavor sounds really good too. Let's get it. Katsuki's eyes widened in surprise at the comment, and he couldn't help but feel a bit flustered. He knew exactly what Jake was insinuating, and it was making him feel a bit hot and bothered. Jake. Nee. Katsuki chuckled nervously and nodded his head. He couldn't deny that the idea was very tempting. Yeah, I think I know what you're thinking, and it's definitely an interesting thought, but maybe we should save that for later. Katsuki laughed and rolled his eyes at Jake's comment. It was definitely a bold idea, but he couldn't help but feel intrigued. You're such a troublemaker. But you know what? I like that about you. Let's get two gummy bears and see what happens. Katsuki's attention was caught by the lollipops, and he couldn't help but notice how many different shapes and sizes they were. It was like a candy wonderland in here. Wow, these lollipops are so unique. There's so many different shapes and sizes. Which one do you think we should get? Katsuki's eyes widened as he saw the lollipop, and he couldn't help but laugh. It was definitely a very interesting shape, and it definitely caught his attention. Oh wow, that is definitely a unique shape, and it definitely looks delicious. Katsuki smiled as he saw the lollipop go into the cart. He couldn't deny how much he was enjoying the little game they were playing. Okay, we've got two giant gummy bears and one very interesting lollipop. I think that's enough candy for one day. But I'm glad we got to spend some time together in this candy paradise. Katsuki's curiosity was piqued, and he couldn't help but wonder what other candy Jake wanted to get. Oh, really? What's the last candy you want to get? Katsuki rolled his eyes but complied, closing his eyes and letting Jake lead him around the store. He had no idea what the last candy was, but he was curious to see what it was. Katsuki's eyes opened, and he saw the big chocolate candy bar in Jake's hands. It was so big and heavy-looking, and he could tell it was full of delicious chocolate. He couldn't believe he hadn't thought of getting one of those. Oh my God, that is the biggest chocolate candy bar I've ever seen. It looks so delicious. You're right, I definitely needed this. Katsuki laughed as he saw the giant chocolate bar and realized just how much chocolate was inside. It was a massive candy bar, and he couldn't wait to dig in. 5 pounds of Hershey's chocolate? That's crazy. I'm definitely going to be eating this over the next few days. It's going to be so good. Katsuki's attention was quickly drawn to Alexander, who was waking up and starting to get fussy. He felt a little bit of anxiety as he realized that they had spent too long in the store, and now Alexander was starting to get upset. Jake, look at Alexander. He's waking up and he's getting fussy. We should probably head home. Katsuki nodded his head and agreed. He was ready to go home and take care of Alexander. They had spent a long time in the store, and it was time to go back home and get some rest. Okay, let's pay for the candy, and then we can head home. Alexander needs us. Katsuki smiled at the idea of taking care of Alexander while Jake paid for the candy. He was happy to have some time with his son, and he was glad Jake had given him the opportunity. Okay, I'll take care of Alexander. You just go ahead and pay for everything, and I'll be waiting in the car. I'll feed him a bottle and get him changed, and we'll be ready to go as soon as you're done. Katsuki smiled and took Alexander in his arms, starting to head out to the car. He was glad to be able to spend some time with his son, and he couldn't wait to feed him and get him changed. Let's go, baby boy. We're going to take care of you now. Katsuki's heart sank as he realized that Alexander was still fussy, even after he had taken him out of the store. It was like he was trying to tell him that he needed something, but Katsuki didn't know what. Shh. It's okay, baby boy. Daddy's here. What do you need? Are you hungry? Do you need to be changed? What is it? Katsuki felt his heart sink as he saw how wet and messy Alexander was. It was obvious that he needed to be changed and fed. He had been so focused on the candy store that he hadn't realized how long it had been since Alexander had eaten. Okay, baby boy. Don't worry. Daddy's got you. Let me just change your diaper, and then I'll feed you, okay? Katsuki carefully changed Alexander's diaper, making sure to be as gentle and careful as possible. Once the diaper was changed, he picked up Alexander and started feeding him a bottle of milk. Alexander immediately started drinking the milk, looking up at Katsuki with his big, adorable eyes. Katsuki smiled as he saw Jake coming up with the bags of candy. He was glad to have his help, and he was happy that Alexander was finally settled down. Jake, look at him. He's finally eating his milk, and he's starting to calm down. I think he was just hungry and needed a change, but I'm glad you're here. I was starting to get worried. Katsuki smiled as he watched Jake interact with Alexander. It was clear that Jake was a great father, and he was always so attentive to Alexander's needs. Yeah, you're right. It is getting late. We should head home. I'll put him in his car seat when he's done with his milk. Katsuki watched as Jake put the bags from the mall into the car, making sure to put them in a safe place so they wouldn't get damaged. He was glad that Jake was taking care of everything, and he was looking forward to getting home with Alexander and being able to relax. Katsuki smiled at the sight of Alexander finishing his bottle and then burping. It was so cute to see him all fed and content, and he was glad that he was finally back in his car seat and safe. Okay, he's all tucked in. We're all ready to head home now. Katsuki started the car and put it into drive, starting to drive down the road. Alexander was asleep in the back seat, and the car was filled with the scent of candy from the stores. It was a pleasant and relaxing drive, and Katsuki was glad to be heading home with his family. Thank you for reading. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. If you're interested in reading more, please let me know in the comments. Goodbye, everyone. I had a lot of fun creating this chapter and making it as entertaining and engaging as possible. I hope you enjoyed reading it as much as I enjoyed writing it. Until next time, thank you for reading this chapter of my story. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it and that you were able to spend time with Jake and his family. As always, I'm here if you have any questions or feedback. Just leave a comment and let me know what you think.
Talkie, Dream AI, Wonder Kingdom.